It was just past 8 a.m. when I heard the knock on my front door. 3 sharp raps, authoritative, the kind meant to make your stomach drop. My wife Lila peeked through the blinds. "Someone's outside. Wearing uniforms," she whispered. I frowned, setting my coffee down. I wasn't on duty today. The HOA had been hounding me for weeks about repainting my mailbox. Petty nonsense. But uniforms? That was new. When I opened the door, 2 men stood on my porch. They wore dark blue shirts with shiny badges, pinned to their chests and belts holding radios and handcuffs. Behind them sat a black SUV with flashing amber lights, not the standard police cruiser setup. "Good morning, sir," the taller one said. "We're here with the Neighborhood Compliance Enforcement Division. We have a warrant for your arrest for HOA violations." I blinked. "You're joking, right?" "No, sir," the shorter one replied, pulling out a folded paper. "Failure to comply with community standards, multiple warnings ignored." I took the paper. It was laughable. The HOA logo printed in the corner. No signature from any real court, and no departmental letterhead. But what bothered me more was the confidence in their voices. They really thought this would work. "Gentlemen," I said calmly, "what department did you say you were from?" "Neighborhood Compliance Enforcement Division," the tall one repeated. "Under the HOA board's authority." That's when it clicked. The HOA president, Karen Whitmore, had threatened to escalate things after I refused to pay their made-up fence maintenance fee. She must have hired these guys. "Well," I said, smirking slightly, "before we go any further, I should probably tell you something important." They looked at each other, uneasy now. "I'm Chief Daniel Reeves," I said, pulling out my real badge, the actual city police badge, gleaming under the sunlight. "So if you're claiming to be officers, we're about to have a serious problem." The shorter man paled. We didn't know." I stepped forward. "You're impersonating law enforcement, attempting an unlawful detainment, and trespassing on private property." Their fake authority crumbled instantly. One stammered something about just following HOA orders, while the other subtly reached for his radio, which I now realized was just a walkie-talkie toy, not even connected to a frequency. "Put it down," I said firmly. "Now." They froze. Behind them, I saw Karen herself standing near the SUV, arms crossed, smiling proudly like she'd orchestrated a grand victory. She had no idea what was coming next. Karen strutted forward like she was walking a red carpet, her heels clicking against the pavement. Her smug smile widened when she saw the look on my face. Calm, calculating, and just a little too quiet for her comfort. "Well, Chief," she said mockingly, "maybe now you'll take the HOA rules seriously. You can't just ignore fines and letters forever." The fake officers stepped aside, clearly realizing they were in over their heads. One whispered, "Ma'am, he's the actual police chief." But Karen waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, please," she snapped. "He's bluffing. Look at his house. Non-compliant mailbox, trash cans in view, and don't even get me started on that unapproved fence color. He thinks he's above everyone else." I crossed my arms. "Karen, impersonating law enforcement is a felony. Hiring men to stage an arrest, that's conspiracy. You sure you want to keep talking?" Her smirk faltered, but she quickly recovered. "They're not impersonating police. They're community officers. It's a private HOA enforcement action. Private enforcement doesn't involve fake badges or arrest warrants." I took a step closer, lowering my voice. "And the minute you told them to detain me, you crossed into criminal territory." Karen's confidence started to drain. "You can't arrest me for doing my job as HOA president." "Oh, I'm not arresting you," I said, pulling out my phone. "But my officers will be here in about 2 minutes. You can explain everything to them." Her fake officers exchanged panicked glances. One muttered, "I told you this was a bad idea before." Bolting toward the SUV, the other tried to follow, but I caught his arm. "You're staying right here." Within moments, real squad cars rolled up, flashing blue and red lights cutting across the quiet suburban street. My Sergeant Lopez stepped out. "Chief, what's going on?" I pointed at the 2 men and Karen. "Impersonation of officers, attempted unlawful arrest, trespassing, conspiracy, to intimidate a public official." Karen gasped. "You can't charge me! This is harassment!" Lopez raised a brow. You tried to arrest the police chief? Karen folded her arms, eyes darting between us. He violated HOA rules. Someone had to do something. As Lopez read them their rights, neighbors started peeking from behind curtains and fences. Phones recorded. Karen's empire of control was crumbling in real time. Before being placed in the squad car, she turned toward me and hissed, "You'll regret this." "Chief, you don't know who you're dealing with." I gave a faint smile. "That's where you're wrong, Karen. I know exactly who I'm dealing with." The door shut with a metallic thud, but something in her eyes told me it wasn't over yet. Karen was released within 48 hours. Her charges, impersonation, conspiracy, and harassment were still pending, but she'd already started plotting her comeback. I knew it. People like her didn't back down. They doubled down. 2 days later, I noticed a black sedan parked across from my house. Every morning, same car, same tinted windows. When I walked my dog, it would pull away. When I came home from work, it'd be back within an hour. By the third day, I'd had enough. I called it in to dispatch, and 2 officers tailed the vehicle. The plates came back registered to Whitmore Property Management, LLC, Karen's husband's business. Typical. That evening, while I was reviewing reports at my kitchen table, my wife Lila handed me a thick envelope. This came in the mail. From the HOA. Inside was a formal letter accusing me of defamation and abuse of authority. The board, apparently still backing. Karen was threatening legal action if I didn't publicly apologize and pay her damages. I couldn't help but laugh. She really doesn't know when to quit, I muttered. But the laughter faded quickly when I turned on my home security app. The feed from my front camera was black. Someone had cut the power to it. A cold chill ran through me. The following morning, a local reporter called my office. "Chief Reeves, we received a tip that you abused your position to target a local HOA president. Care to comment?" Karen was spinning a media narrative now. She'd planted stories portraying herself as a victim of police corruption. Online, hashtags like Justice for Karen started popping up. By the end of the week, a protest formed outside City Hall, small but loud. Signs read HOA Lives Matter and Stop Chief Reeves. It would have been laughable if it wasn't so coordinated. That's when Lopez burst into my office, holding a printed email. "Chief, you need to see this. It was sent to City Council." The email claimed I'd used police resources to illegally detain innocent citizens for personal revenge. Attached were fake screenshots, fabricated arrest logs showing Karen's name entered by me. "Someone hacked our system?" I asked. "Not exactly," Lopez said grimly. "These are mock-ups, not actual data. Someone wants this to look real." My gut tightened. Karen had found a new angle. If she couldn't win legally, she'd destroy me publicly. I stared out my office window, the city skyline glinting in the distance. This was no longer about HOA rules or fences. It was personal warfare now. And if she wanted a battle, she was about to get one. The morning of the hearing was quiet, too quiet. Karen had filed an official complaint with the City Ethics Board, demanding I be suspended pending investigation. Every local news station was outside City Hall. Cameras ready, waiting to see the police chief fall. I arrived early, uniform crisp, calm as ever. Lila squeezed my hand before I walked in. "Be careful," she whispered. "She wants to humiliate you." "I know," I said softly. "But she's overplayed her hand." Inside, the conference room buzzed with tension. Karen sat at the long oak table, flanked by 2 attorneys and several HOA board members. She looked smug, wearing a bright red blazer like she was starring in a courtroom drama. Across from her, I took my seat. My department's legal counsel nodded to me. "We have everything ready, Chief," he murmured. The hearing began. Karen spoke first, her voice dripping with confidence. "Chief Reeves used his power to threaten private citizens. He fabricated charges, intimidated the HOA, and violated our civil rights." The board members nodded politely. Cameras flashed. She was performing, not testifying. When it was my turn, I stood slowly. "Madam Chair," I said evenly, "I have evidence that Ms. Whitmore hired unlicensed individuals to impersonate officers, attempted an unlawful arrest, and later fabricated digital evidence to discredit me." I clicked the remote. The lights dimmed. On the screen appeared footage. From a newly retrieved home security backup, my tech team had restored the files after the cameras were cut. The video clearly showed the fake officers on my porch, wearing counterfeit badges, followed by Karen instructing them to bring him in. Gasps rippled across the room. Karen's face drained of color. That's edited," she stammered. I played the next clip, audio recordings from one of the imposters. "Police interviews. Karen told us he'd never risk arresting us because he's scared of losing his job," the man's voice said. "She promised we'd be paid double if we made it look real." Silence. The chairwoman leaned forward. "Ms. Whitmore, do you deny this?" Karen's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. One of her lawyers whispered, "We should leave." But it was too late. The board declared the complaint baseless and referred her actions to the district attorney's office for criminal review. As she was escorted out, Karen glared at me one last time. "You think you've won?" she hissed. I met her eyes. "No, Karen, the law won." Outside, reporters swarmed me with questions. But I simply said, justice isn't about power, it's about truth. That night, I sat on my porch, the neighborhood quiet again. The fake officers were in custody. The HOA board had voted to remove Karen, and peace had finally returned. At least, until the next Karen comes along.